The 1960s didn't just move, it roared. In an era of revolutions and rock and roll, the car became more than transport. It was velocity incarnate. These machines weren't designed to whisper across highways. They were built to scream, to shake the air, to taunt physics, and to make hearts pound. These are the 15 fastest legends of a decade defined by speed. 1. Ferrari 365 GTB/4 Daytona, 1968. They called it the Daytona, not because it raced there first, but because it belonged there. Under that impossibly long hood lived a 4.4-liter V12, a mechanical opera of precision and passion that could howl all the way to 174 miles per hour. At full tilt, the car didn't just move, it hunted. The aerodynamics were raw, the steering heavy with purpose, and every gear shift felt like a punch through time. Its nose was a blade, slicing through the decade's noise. The headlights hid beneath retractable eyelids, like a beast blinking before the kill. And inside, black leather wrapped around defiance. No radio, no distractions, just you, the engine, and the stretch of road begging for courage. It wasn't built for comfort. It was built to outpace memory. The Daytona stood at the edge of an era where speed met elegance. Where Ferrari didn't ask permission to dominate, it just did. The moment it touched asphalt, the rest of the world seemed slower. This car didn't cruise, it attacked. It was the exclamation point at the end of a Ferrari sentence. And it still echoes in the tunnels of Italy, in the dreams of racers, in the hearts of those who remember speed not as numbers, but as feeling. 2. Lamborghini Miura, P400S, 1968. The Miura didn't arrive, it erupted. Lamborghini didn't just make a car in 1968, it made mythology. A 3.9-liter Phi 12 mounted midship like a raging bull's heart, pushing the Miura beyond 170 miles per hour. It wasn't just fast, it was revolutionary. From the moment the scissor-like lashes over its headlights blinked open, the world knew this wasn't an evolution. It was a rebirth. Its body, low-slung and sensual, stretched across curves that defied wind. It crouched like a panther before the leap. Impossibly beautiful, terrifyingly alive. The cabin was tight, intimate, humming with tension. When the throttle opened, the sound wasn't mechanical. It was spiritual. Engineers whispered it shouldn't exist. It was too bold, too balanced, too blasphemous for tradition. Yet Ferruccio Lamborghini didn't want tradition. He wanted revenge. The Miura was his answer to Ferrari's dominance, and it didn't knock politely. It kicked the door in at 7,000 RPM. It taught the world that speed wasn't just straight line. It was rhythm, balance, madness. Every gear shift a heartbeat, every corner a confession. The Miura didn't just reshape Lamborghini, it redefined the word supercar. And like all true legends, it never really stopped moving. 3. Ford GT40 Mark II, 1966. Born not from peace, but from vengeance. The Ford GT40 wasn't a car. It was a middle finger to Enzo Ferrari, a declaration from Detroit that said, "We can do better." And in 1966, at Le Mans, they did, at 210 miles per hour. Its 7.0-liter V8 didn't purr. It roared with American fury, devouring the Mulsanne Strait with the thunder of a low-flying warplane. It was heavy, brutal, purpose-built. The GT40 didn't flirt with finesse. It punched the track into submission. Inside, it was all function, no flirtation, no luxury, no romance, just switches, sweat, and the scent of racing fuel soaked into the very bones of the machine. This was the kind of car that didn't let you drive it. It demanded a pilot. Every line of its design was war paint. Its name? GT for Grand Touring. 40 for its height in inches, low enough to duck under arrogance and scream past ego. When it beat Ferrari at Le Mans, finishing 1-2-3, the GT40 didn't just win. It changed everything. It shattered the illusion of European invincibility. This wasn't a machine of elegance, it was one of vengeance, and speed was its language of revenge. 4. Jaguar XJ13, 1966. Only one was ever made. Jaguar's XJ13 wasn't designed to be seen. It was born in secrecy, a silent contender meant to reclaim Le Mans glory. Under its sculpted aluminum skin purred a 5.0-liter V12, capable of 174 miles per hour. But the track would never hear it scream in competition. The body was poetry, wide, flat, flowing like liquid over asphalt. It didn't look like it was designed, it looked like it was discovered. The wheels sat like fists under tension, and the cockpit, pure function, was trimmed in ghostly elegance. But politics killed the dream before ignition could meet legacy. The XJ13 was shelved, forgotten, a relic before it was a legend. Years later, it was brought out for testing and crashed, almost lost forever. But it was reborn, rebuilt, resurrected like a fallen knight, polished for a museum, not a battlefield. It never raced, it never won. And yet, it's remembered, because some machines don't need trophies to matter. They carry their speed like myth, cloaked in what-ifs and almost. The XJ13 was a whisper that roared once, and that was enough. 5. Chevrolet Corvette L88, 1967. It looked like every other Corvette, but this one had secrets. Under the fiberglass curves of the 1967 L88 was an untamed 427 cubic inch V8, a beast so powerful, Chevrolet lied about its capabilities. Officially rated at 430 horsepower, in truth, it belted out closer to 560. It could breach 170 miles per hour if you dared to tame it. This wasn't a car for casual showrooms or Sunday cruises. It was engineered to race. Stiff suspension, heavy-duty brakes, no heater, no radio. Even the fan shroud was omitted, because anything not chasing speed was unnecessary weight. The L88 wasn't advertised to the public. It was whispered about in racing garages and dealer backrooms. Only a handful were made, each one a ticking time bomb of torque and danger. And when it moved, it didn't glide. It lunged, it snarled, it demanded your full allegiance. The sound? A thunderclap. The drive? Like wrestling a wild animal on fire. The L88 didn't ask to be respected. It demanded it, with a growl at idle and a scream at redline. This wasn't just the fastest Corvette of the 60s. It was America's secret weapon. 6. Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato 1960. Speed wrapped in sculpture. The Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato wasn't just fast. It was art on the edge of control. With a top speed nearing 153 miles per hour, it wasn't the fastest of the 60s by numbers, but in spirit, it raced among gods. Under the lightweight aluminum skin shaped by Zagato's hands was a 3.7-liter straight-six engine, breathing fire through triple Weber carburetors. Every rev was a refined growl, every shift a reminder that this was a gentleman's car bred for war. It was lighter, tighter, angrier than the standard DB4. The grille sneered, the proportions danced, and when it cornered, it felt like silk under tension. Smooth, but always ready to snap. Inside, there was little comfort. Only command. Leather bucket seats held you firm. Gauges stared like hawkeyes. The wheel pulsed with the heartbeat of a car that didn't tolerate hesitation. Only 19 were ever built, each one a collector's fever dream, not mass-produced, hand-formed. It raced with courage and crashed into legend. The DB4 GT Zagato was never about brute force. It was about discipline, elegance, precision. The kind of speed that whispered its dominance rather than shouting it. It didn't just belong on the road. It belonged in history's bloodstream. 7. Iso Grifo A3/C 1965. Built by Italians, powered by Americans, worshipped by speed. The Iso Grifo A3/C was a Frankenstein of fury. Italian design married to Chevrolet's small block V8. A blend of finesse and raw muscle, it could hit 170 miles per hour with terrifying ease. Styled by Giugiaro, the aluminum body sat low and wide, a silent missile draped in elegance. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It was purposeful, crouched like a predator that didn't bark until it bit. The engine came from Corvette blood, a 5.4-liter V8 buried deep in the nose. It rumbled like a muscle car but moved with Italian grace. And that cabin? Leather stretched over rivets, gauges tucked like secrets. You didn't sit in it, you strapped in. Only a few dozen were built for racing. Lightweight, ferocious, barely street legal. They were hammered together in Bizzarini's workshops like weapons for a private war. And when they raced, they terrified rivals not with prestige but with results. The A3C wasn't built to devour Mistrals and Daytonas on the track. And it did. This was the uninvited guest who danced better than everyone in the room. 8th Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL 6.3, 1968. It looked like a banker's sedan, but beneath the polished chrome and upright elegance lurked a beast. The 300 SEL 6.3 was Mercedes' quiet rebellion, taking a 6.3-liter V8 from their flagship limousine and stuffing it into their luxury saloon. The result? A 4,000-pound executive rocket ship that could hit 140 miles per hour and get there quicker than most sports cars. The acceleration was violent. The ride? Like velvet over gravel. Inside, burl walnut wood caressed your fingertips. Leather cocooned you in civility. But when the throttle hit the floor, the civility vanished, replaced by tire smoke and the distant wail of confused rivals. There was no badge shouting its power, no stripes, no spoilers. Just quiet fury. It wasn't supposed to exist. But engineer Eric Waxenberger built it anyway in secret as an experiment. And once the board of directors drove it, they knew Mercedes had accidentally created the world's fastest four-door sedan. It became a legend whispered between tycoons and racers. A car that wore a suit but fought like a street brawler. This was muscle in a tuxedo, and it never broke a sweat. 9. Maserati Ghibli SS, 1969. It didn't growl, it hissed, like something venomous behind the wheel. The Maserati Ghibli SS was beauty weaponized. A grand tourer with a shark silhouette and a V8 heart that pushed it to 174 miles per hour, faster than anything Maserati had ever built. Designed by Giugiaro, the body looked like it was carved by wind. Low, wide, mercilessly seductive. It didn't roll down streets, it prowled. And inside, it was every bit the luxury assassin. Stitched leather, chrome toggles, and a dash that gleamed like a cockpit from a dream. Under the hood, a 4.9-liter V8, not just tuned for speed, but for theater. It snarled when prodded, roared when challenged. The throttle response was immediate. The brakes, barely enough. The drive, a balance between rapture and risk. This wasn't a car that asked to be pushed. It demanded it, and punished hesitation. The Ghibli SS wasn't born for racing, but for ruling roads. It was a continent crusher with the heart of a rebel. A car that could run 1,000 miles in a day and look drop-dead gorgeous at sunset. It was the fantasy Italy promised, made dangerously real. 10th Shelby Cobra 427, 1965. It wasn't a car, it was a riot in metal form. The Shelby Cobra 427 was Carroll Shelby's bad-tempered masterpiece. An English roadster stuffed with an American V8 so big it barely fit between the frame rails. The result? A 485 horsepower monster that could tear past 165 miles per hour, if you could hold on to it. 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds, but numbers don't tell the story. Fear does. Because driving it was like holding onto lightning with bare hands. The aluminum body was feather light. The 7.0-liter engine? A freight train on fire. The exhaust blasted from the side pipes, scarring air and eardrums. It didn't steer, it lunged. It didn't brake, it begged for mercy. The cockpit was brutal, tiny, hot, loud. You felt every vibration through your spine, every shift like loading a rifle. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was war. Yet it was beautiful, terrifyingly, addictively beautiful. The Cobra didn't just win races, it embarrassed Ferraris. It didn't just sell dreams, rather, it made nightmares fun. No car screamed the 1960s more violently. It wasn't built for roads, it was built for rebellion. 11. Bizzarini 5300 GT Strada, 1965. Every curve was a battle scar, every bolt a rebellion. The Bizzarini 5300 GT Strada was born from betrayal. Giotto Bizzarini, once Ferrari's lead engineer, was cast out. And he responded not with words, but with this. a low-slung, fire-breathing grand tourer that could rip past 170 miles per hour. Its engine, a Corvette-sourced 5.4-liter V8 shoved far behind the front axle, creating near-perfect weight distribution. It wasn't just fast in a straight line, it cornered like it had something to prove, because it did. The body, sculpted by Bertone, sat impossibly low, barely waist-high. Its nose was razor-sharp, its hips wide with aggression. From a distance, it looked calm. Up close, it radiated menace. Inside, it was sparse. Nothing was soft. Nothing was forgiving. This car didn't coddle. It challenged. It asked if you were worthy to turn the key. It wasn't made for comfort. It was made for revenge. And when it roared, it told Maranello, "You made a mistake." Few cars were built, even fewer survive. But those who've touched the 5300 GT Strada know this wasn't a machine. It was a grudge, forged in steel and finished in fury. 12. Pontiac GTO The Judge Ram Air 4, 1969. This wasn't subtle. It was loud in color, loud in sound, and louder in spirit. The Judge was Pontiac's muscle-bound war cry, a 400 cubic inch V8-powered icon that pushed toward 140 miles per hour and smoked our tires like they owed it money. With the rare Ram Air 4 option, it delivered north of 370 horsepower. Conservative on paper, volcanic in practice. Named after a comedy sketch but dead serious when the light turned green, the GTO Judge was raw Detroit rebellion. Orange paint, black stripes, hood scoops like nostrils of a dragon. This wasn't a gentleman's express, it was a street fighter in bell-bottoms. The inside smelled of vinyl and gasoline. The gear lever rattled with anticipation. And when you floored it, the rear end stepped out, not as a mistake, but as a threat. The GTO Judge wasn't just fast, it was defiant. Against conformity, against imports, against silence. It stood for everything the late 60s felt: fast, brash, and ready to challenge anything in its path. This wasn't just a muscle car. It was the gavel that declared who ruled the road. 13. De Tommaso Mangusta, 1967. It whispered promises with a knife behind its back. The De Tommaso Mangusta, Italian for mongoose, the Cobra Killer, was everything the name implied: sleek, agile, and deadly. Mid-engined and powered by a Ford 289 V8, it could scream past 155 miles per hour, with the sound of transcontinental rage. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, the Mangusta looked like it was forged from a single piece of liquid night. Its most iconic feature? Twin butterfly hatches over the engine, a spine split open, revealing raw power beneath. But it was treacherous. The chassis flexed. The weight distribution bit at high speeds. It didn't drive. It tested your resolve, but that was the point. This car wasn't for everyone. It was for the daring, the desperate, the ones who looked at death and said, "Try me." Inside, it was all sharp lines and exposed switches. An aircraft cockpit disguised as a grand tourer. The seats were low, the pedals cramped, the visibility near zero. But when the world blurred through the windscreen, none of that mattered. The Mangusta didn't play by rules, it invented its own and dared you to keep up. 14th Dodge Charger Daytona, 1969. This was no street machine, it was a missile, made for one thing: domination. The Dodge Charger Daytona was the outlaw rocket of NASCAR. Its nose cone stretched like an arrowhead. Its rear wing towered like a middle finger to aerodynamics doubters. And with a 426 Hemi under the hood, it cracked 200 miles per hour before the 70s even began. It wasn't legal on the streets for long. It embarrassed the competition so badly, NASCAR changed the rules. That's how you know it worked. Every line was drag tested, every vent was warfare, and when it passed, it didn't roar. It thundered. You could feel it in your chest long after it was gone. Inside, it was pure Mopar muscle, but stripped of pretense. Vinyl seats, wide dials, and the haunting sound of air slicing around steel at full tilt. Only a few hundred were built for homologation. The rest? Legends of oval tracks, still echoing in the empty grandstands of Talladega. The Charger Daytona wasn't a car, it was an aeronautical experiment that learned how to race. 15th Porsche, 911S, 1967. Precision disguised as rebellion. The Porsche 911S didn't make thunderous claims. It didn't wear wild wings or scream through megaphone exhausts. Instead, it whispered speed through perfection. A 2.0-liter flat six, tuned and sharpened to dance past 140 miles per hour with the precision of a scalpel. It wasn't about brute force. It was about balance. About taking corners not in fear but in faith. That the car would stick, grip, and carry you through. Every shift in the 911S felt like clicking into destiny. Every pedal press was a lesson in restraint and reward. It was the lightest, quickest, most agile version of the early 911S, and it set the tone for everything Porsche would become. Not just fast, but exact. Not just powerful, but poetic. Inside, it was surgical. 5 dials stared back at you, the tack dead center. The steering spoke back in fractions. It didn't forgive mistakes. It taught you not to make them. This was speed you earned, and once you did, you never wanted anything else. They weren't just fast, they were furious with purpose, steel guided by instinct, power sculpted by art. The 1960s gave us speed not as novelty, but as identity. And though decades have passed, these machines still echo in garages, in dreams, and in the silence before the engine turns.